Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Stephanie.
I'm Tom.
Hey, it's our nature unit. And we're going to be talking about some flowers today. These flowers are really special, though. They do their most beautiful work at night. So they bloom at night, so you have to be a night owl, I guess, if you want to see some of these flowers. Because during the day, they actually have their petals closed, and you can't see how pretty they are. I know that sunflowers are much more beautiful in the sun, right?
Right.
Well, these are some flowers that really only bloom at night. So if you want to see them, you're going to have to go, I guess, take a tour at night to see some of these. A couple of them I had not heard of, so it's kind of fun to do a little bit of research on them. But if you're into flowers, you'll love this particular unit. Are you into flowers, Tom?
Well, I'm trying to. To guys, flowers are things that you have to buy for your girlfriend. Otherwise, she'll get mad at you if you don't.
Really?
But, I'd like to do more scientific research on flowers and see what kind of purpose they serve, what role they play in nature.
They're there for pollen and the spreading of pollen. Yeah,
so I should have more of an appreciation for flowers.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of thinking about them as a burden or something like that. But in any case, yes, we are talking about flowers, but particularly flowers that blossom at night or they bloom at night. So let's get to it. Let's read the article now, and then we'll come back to discuss it. A walk through a park or well-groomed garden is a great chance to appreciate some beautiful flowers. While this is conventionally a daytime activity, you might be surprised to hear that certain flowers' beauty can also be admired at night. In fact, some flowers only ever bloom in the dark. To understand why a flower would open its petals after the sun goes down, we must recall why flowers bloom at all. Plants have flowers in order to entice insects to visit them. These insects carry pollen around, which is vital to the plant's life cycles. However, there's a lot of competition for the attention of insects that are active during the day. Some plants unfold at night in order to be visited by nocturnal insects. Moths go from flower to flower and transfer pollen while they feed. Other nighttime visitors include ants and beetles. One example of a night-blooming flower is the moonflower. These large white blossoms open at night and get their name from being compared to the full moon overhead. Good as they sometimes smell, they're poisonous and should be avoided. Around the world, water lilies of different species bloom at night. In the Himalayas, the spectacular Brahma Kamal flower blooms for just one sole night each year. It is more difficult to see these extraordinary flowers, but it can be well worth it. Next time you walk around in nature, ask yourself whether the plants you see might erupt with color in the middle of the night.
Let's take a look at the title first, you guys. So, The Marvels of Night Blooming Flowers. Marvels here. Marvel is a noun. Usually we see this as an adjective, marvelous. So a marvel is just something that's pretty wonderful, astonishing. Why are they so amazing? Well, they bloom at night. Now, to make that into a shorter adjective, we're combining night and blooming together. So they're night blooming flowers. They only bloom at night. To bloom just means to open up. You can use this for people too, and not just flowers. If you refer to someone who has bloomed in the last year or so, it just means they've probably grown up, become more confident. They look good. They look like life is treating them well. We use it to talk about teenagers sometimes, Our teen years are tough. Sometimes it's hard going through those years. You don't know who you are and you don't feel as confident. But if you are blooming, it just means you're getting over that stage. You feel more like you know who you are, you're confident in your talent, and you have lots of friends, that sort of thing. So, yeah, people can bloom as well as flowers.
They certainly can. And here the word bloom is a verb. That just means the flower comes out, it opens up, and you can see its colors. And that is similar in meaning to the word blossom. Bloom and blossom are both verbs there. But I would say bloom is used more often to describe the action, and blossom is most often used as a noun, especially if you're talking about flowers in trees, like plum blossoms or apple blossoms. Or cherry blossoms. To me, a blossom is a flower that grows in a tree, and then a bloom is more a flower that's from a plant on the ground.
Yeah, like a rose bush. That's so true. We have a lot of fruit trees in my yard, my parents' yard, and we'll say that tree is blossoming. We won't say the tree is blooming. But for the roses, Mom has lots of roses out in the front, which are plants. We will say the roses are blooming. We won't say the roses are blossoming. So I would just take Tom's advice on this one. Use blossom to talk about the buds on trees, blooming or blossoming, and then use bloom to talk about flowers. It's a good rule of thumb. It works. But you can also use blossom to talk about people, becoming more confident and sure of themselves as well as bloom. So we're going to walk through a park. This is our scenario, the scene we're painting for you, or our author is painting. We're going to walk through a park or well-groomed garden. If you've groomed your garden, just means you've taken really good care of it. There aren't any weeds. You're watering your plants regularly. They're well taken care of, so it's well-groomed. If a person is well-groomed, means their clothes are clean and ironed. Their hair is combed. They look good. If they're not well-groomed, just means they look sloppy. Maybe they're dirty. Perhaps they're homeless. They live on the street. It's hard to be well-groomed if you don't have a home. So this is a well-groomed garden, and it gives people a chance to appreciate some beautiful flowers.
Right, you can see them in different parts of Taipei, at least, at the Shilin Guandi, the Shilin residence, and the Botanical Garden, and other places as well. But yeah, you could go to a park or a garden, and you can appreciate some beautiful flowers. And while this is conventionally a daytime activity, you might be surprised to hear that certain flowers' beauty can also be admired at night. So yeah, I've never really thought about this before. I thought flowers only bloomed during the day. I thought they just kind of cover up at night and you wouldn't be able to see anything.
Right.
But it turns out there are some species of flower that do bloom at night.
Yeah, some flowers maybe don't like that hot sun, and so they keep their petals closed during the day. But they don't mind the moon, so they open up in the dark. Now, to understand why a flower would open its petals after the sun goes down, we must recall why flowers bloom at all. So the petals, guys, they're kind of like leaves, but they have a color to them. Leaves, of course, are always the green part that come from the stem, but the petals are parts of the flower itself, and they're usually different colors. Perhaps they're white. They could be white. But some of these flowers only open after the sun goes down. If you recall something, it means you bring something back to your memory that you had seen before or knew before. Recall. The verb pronunciation, guys, is recall with a short I sound. But if it's a noun, recall, then you're going to pronounce it differently because English likes to mess people up, huh? Recall. Sometimes a company will produce a bad product that has flaws or has maybe perhaps even hurt people, and they'll have a product recall, meaning you will take that product that you bought, maybe it's a car, take it back to the place where you bought it, and they will give you another car because the one that they're recalling is dangerous. But recall here is to recall, bring a fact back into your mind so that you can remember something.
Right. So, yeah, we're using that word here to just simply mean to remember. We do need to remember or recall why flowers bloom at all. Yeah, why do they do that? Why do we have flowers in the world? Is it God's way? Is it God's way of just making the world more beautiful? Well, yeah, you could say that, but I suppose it also has a scientific purpose. Here we go with that explanation. Plants have flowers in order to entice insects to visit them. There you go. That's why plants have flowers. They're kind of trying to attract or lure insects or to entice insects in because insects play a role in pollination. So here we've got the word entice, which basically means, as I said, to attract, to tempt somebody, to lure them in, to get them closer. And that could happen with a company. You know, if they want you to buy some new products, they could entice you with some samples. You can try the samples and, hey, I like that. I'm going to continue buying their product.
Lots of things can entice you. Wonderful smells coming from the night market entice me to walk inside the night market and try to see what smells so good. So these plants have flowers, like Tom said, in order to lure, entice, or persuade these insects to come on over. These insects carry pollen around. Pollen is a powdery substance. If you've ever gone to a flower and kind of touched it a little bit, sometimes that powder comes off on your fingers. A lot of times it's yellow, and that pollen is what those different insects are looking for. Now, pollen comes from the male part of the flower. And so those insects will get some of that pollen rubbed on their bodies, and then they go to other sort of plants and spread that pollen around, which helps keep the plant's life cycles continuing. So there's a very important role for pollen. Now, for those of you out there that suffer from allergies and sneeze and have your eyes water and your nose run from, just being allergic to things, you can thank pollen. This is some of what causes people to have those bad allergy attacks.
True, but pollen is necessary in nature, and they are vital to the plant's life cycle. They do need pollen, otherwise the plants are all going to die. Okay, that brings us to the midway point in today's lesson. Let's take a break now and listen to our Chinese teacher.
各位同学大家好，我们今天要学习的单元是 Unit 14, The Marvels of Night Blooming Flowers。大家是否有赏花的经验？每年春天总是有许多民众会到中正纪念堂或阳明山等地赏花。不过大家除了欣赏花朵的风姿以外，也可以利用 Unit 14这个单元增加对花的了解，充实自己的知识。大家知道有些花只会在夜晚开花吗？是哪些花呢？是否有任何因素导致这些花只有晚上才会盛开？ Unit 14为我们提供了充分的解答。我们一起来练习这篇扣漏字选择吧。我们先解第一题。不过在解题前，老师要提醒大家，现在大考的综合测验有许多题目都很重视上下文，4个选项里可能每个放入句子都合乎文法，但是却与前后文不相关或甚至矛盾，所以题干所在的前后句也都很重要，请不要直接忽略。现在我们请看第一题所在的前一个句子，散步穿越公园或修剪整齐的花园，就有大好机会可以欣赏美丽的花朵。接着我们看到第一题本身的句子 While this is 空格。好，那这个题干的意思是，我们先看 this 所指的是赏花，整句话的意思应该是赏花空格，是白天的活动，而听到在夜晚也能欣赏有些花朵的风采，大家可能会很惊讶。我们看一下第一题的4个选项 A. Annually 是年度的， B. Experimentally 是试验的， C. Mutually 是相互的， D. Conventionally 是平常的、一般的。好，那会惊讶呢，通常是异于平常、一般所习惯的，所以第一题我们选 D. Conventional。Conventional 有符合一般做法、观念的意思。第二段解释为什么有些植物在晚上开花，我们看第二题前一句，植物开花是为了吸引昆虫来造访，昆虫会到处传播花粉， which is 那第二题的空格 to the plant's life cycles。这里的 which 是关系代名词，指的是昆虫传粉这件事，所以题干是在问我们这件事对植物的生命周期空格，我们应该要填什么呢？看一下第二题的4个选项 A. vital 重要的， B. external 外部的， C. accessible 可进入的， D. 易受影响的，是 vulnerable 的意思， vulnerable 是易受影响的。好，根据文意我们选重要的，这件事对植物的生命周期很重要，所以我们选 A。 那老师想要补充跟 vital 相关的片语， vital organs 就是重要器官的意思。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back, guys. It's our nature unit, and we're talking about some really cool night blooming flowers. We set the scene. We're in a really well-groomed garden, and we come upon some flowers that really don't bloom during the daytime. They only bloom in the dark or at night. So we talked about why a flower even opens its petals after the sun goes down. Well, we have to remember or recall why flowers bloom at all. Why do they? Well, plants have flowers in order to entice insects to visit them. And these insects transfer something called pollen around from flower to flower and helps the flower cycles, the life cycles of the plants or flowers keep going and continuing. We need plants to live.
Right, and the flowers attract the insects, and I guess the flowers have those bright colors, and the bees, I guess, can see those colors and think, hey, and they think, I'm going over there to check out that flower and try to find some pollen, and then fly over to a female plant. I'm not sure if the bees really know exactly what's going on there, but here it says, however, there's a lot of competition for the attention of insects that are active during the day. So, yes, the plants need the insects, but there probably are only just a certain amount of insects to go around. There's a lot of competition, and some flowers probably don't get bees to come there as often as they want. So some plants unfold at night in order to be visited by nocturnal insects. So, of course, living things are active at different times during the day, and if you are an animal or plant that is active at night, you are called nocturnal. There are a lot of nocturnal animals that are active at night. I can't really think of any examples right now. But
owls.
Owls, yeah, that's good. They come out at night.
Thank you.
And there are other ones as well. So insects, I guess some are active during the day and some are active at night, and they are nocturnal insects. So the flowers, they bloom at night to attract those kinds of insects.
They do. So, did we talk about competition? You know what competition is, right? When there's competition, it means people are competing against each other to win something. We have competition in school. Sometimes, you'll want to see what scores your classmates got because you want to beat them. You want to get a higher score than they did. We have competitions that go on in sports. Teams will play against each other. They'll compete against each other. Well, there's competition for the attention of insects. So, as Tom said, some of these plants unfold at night, and they're visited by insects that are busy and active only at night. So moths go from flower to flower and transfer pollen while they feed. If you transfer something, you take something from one place and you move it somewhere else. If you're a person and your boss says he wants you to transfer to a different department, just means you're going to be moving from your current department and working somewhere else. You could transfer to a different city, and then you would actually move to a different city. Well, they're moving pollen from flower to flower while they feed, while they're getting their their nutrition themselves because moths need food too.
And moths are nocturnal, which is I believe in Chinese, moth.
They come out at night, don't they?
They do indeed. If you see lights at night, sometimes you see lots of moths flying around those lights.
Yeah.
So yes, they go to those nighttime flowers and transfer the pollen while they feed. And other nighttime visitors include ants and beetles. I think ants don't sleep at all, do they? They're active during the day
I don't
and
think they
at night.
need to.
And maybe beetles spread a little pollen around too. I've never heard that before, but beetles are kind of cute. And of course, there are thousands of different species of beetles in the world. And now we'll move on to the next paragraph here. It says, one example of a night-blooming flower is the moonflower. That's a flower that exists in North and South America. I don't think you have it here in Taiwan, but this is an example that we're going to give you. And these are large white blossoms, and they open at night, and they get their name from being compared to the full moon overhead. So yeah, they are white, and they are kind of round like the full moon when it's shining overhead, above your head.
Yeah, I saw a picture of them online, and I was telling Tom they look very similar to the petunia, which grows in abundance in Arizona where I grew up because it's so hot in Arizona. You need really tough flowers to survive the heat. Well, these are moonflowers. They're really pretty, and they are compared to the full moon overhead. Overhead just means up above your head, right? We'll often say, oh, there's a plane overhead. That's how we'd use that particular word too. So good as they sometimes smell, they're poisonous. Ooh, maybe it's a good thing they're not here in Taiwan. If something's poisonous, it has poison in it or some sort of substance that can either kill you or make you really sick. So you want to avoid the moonflower. Thankfully, they're not here, but there are some plants and flowers that are poisonous. You should do your homework and find out what they are.
Right, and this is an interesting sentence pattern here. Good as something, adjective as something. So basically it means even though they smell good, they're actually poisonous. So you kind of expect the opposite there. For example, I could say, fast as Roger is, he still finished last in the marathon. So even though Roger runs very fast, he still finished last in the marathon. So yeah, here, good as they sometimes smell, even though they smell good, still they're poisonous. You can get sick if you try to eat them, and they should be avoided. Stay away from them or don't touch them and stuff like that. You could be in big trouble. Now, around the world, water lilies of different species bloom at night. So I guess these are plants that grow in the water. And of course, there are different species of water lily, just like there are different species of orchids and roses and various other flowers.
We see a lot of water lilies here in Taiwan. They're quite pretty. So those are also flowers that will open up at night. So around the world, water lilies of different species bloom at night. A species is one type of species is a group of living organisms that have similar genes, and they can exchange genes or interbreed together. We have the human species, we have animal species, we have plant species as well. Now, in a place called the Himalayas, Himalaya mountains are quite famous. There's the spectacular Brahma Kamal flower blooms for just one sole night each year, just one night a year. Spectacular just means beautiful. You see the word spectacle in that word spectacular, which is an adjective, just means it's so beautiful to look at. So, yeah, this only blooms one night each year. What does sole mean, Tom?
Just only. It's just the one.
Yeah.
You often hear this in the phrase, the sole survivor, the only person that survived in a plane crash or something like that. Now, it is more difficult to see these extraordinary flowers, but it can be well worth it. So, yes, it can be difficult to go out at night to try to find these flowers, but if you can find them, it's worth the effort. And next time you walk around in nature, ask yourself whether the plants you see might erupt with color in the middle of the night. Here we've got the verb to erupt. We most often use that word to describe volcanoes, like Mount Pinatubo in the Philippines that erupted sometime in the 90s, I believe. It basically exploded and lava came out. But we also use this to talk about any sudden emergence of something.
Yeah, a person's temper can erupt. They can be really angry. Or maybe a fire erupts. It just bursts out. It starts suddenly. So yeah, you might see some of these plants erupt with color in the middle of the night. You better take a flashlight, though. You don't want to miss some of these beautiful flowers. Right now, we're going to listen to our Chinese teacher, who will explain a bit more, and then we'll be back to say goodbye.
好，我们看第三题。前一句 However, there's a lot of competition for the attention of insects that are active during the day. 这句话的意思是说，但是白天活动的昆虫的注意力，有很多花都想要抢得它们的注意力。第三题题干本身的句子 Some plants 有些植物为了迎来夜行昆虫的造访，在晚上会怎么样呢？空格应该要填什么？我们看第三题，这4个选项分别是什么意思 ？A. Evaluate 评估 B. Unfold 展开或开展 C. Surrender 投降 D. Descend 是下降。好，那我们根据文意选 Unfold。那有些植物为了迎来夜行昆虫的造访，会在晚上开展展开。Unfold 这个动词非常的有用，有几个惯用语，请同学特别注意，像包括说随着事件开展 The event unfolds， 或者说随着未来的发展 As the future unfolds。 接着我们往后看到第三段是晚上开花的例子 Moonflower 月光花。第4题前一句These large white blossoms open at night and get their name from being compared to the full moon overhead. 月光花的名字从何而来？有人把这些花比喻作头顶上的满月。Be compared to 就是把比喻成什么，或被比喻成什么。第4题后一句 They are poisonous and should be avoided. 它们有毒，要避免接触。第4题的所有选项长得都很像，大致上都是要传达虽然花闻起来很香，不过有毒。这是 as 或 though 当作虽然解释，作为副词连接词，把形容词或副词放在句子开头强调的倒装句型。本来是 although they sometimes smell good， 用的 as 的倒装句就变成 good as they sometimes smell。 最后我们看到第5题，本句说明要看到这些与众不同的花比较困难，主词是 to see these extraordinary flowers， 主词补语是 more difficult， 因为主词比较长，所以我们把它移到主词补语之后，而用虚主词 it 来代替原本的主词，所以答案我们选 A it。 以上就是我们 Unit 14的中文解说，谢谢大家。
That's it for today's program. Thank you for joining us, and please join us again next time. And hey, enjoy your nighttime hike looking for nocturnal flowers. It will be worth the effort. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.